After Richard Goodall's special performance, it's important to note just how much of an impact his impressive vocals have made around the world.
For millions of viewers, Richard Goodall seemed to appear out of nowhere. One unforgettable performance on America's Got Talent transformed an ordinary school janitor into one of the most talked-about contestants of the season. His powerful voice, humble personality, and emotional story captured hearts across America. But once the excitement of the competition began to fade, many people started asking the same question. What really happened to Richard Goodall after AGT? Unlike many reality television stars who immediately chased celebrity status, Richard's story took a very different direction. His journey wasn't about becoming famous overnight. It was about perseverance, second chances, and proving that extraordinary dreams can belong to ordinary people. Before the standing ovations, the golden buzzer, and the national headlines, Richard lived a quiet life that few people outside his hometown ever noticed. Growing up in Terre Haute, Indiana, Richard discovered music at an early age. He wasn't raised in a family of famous performers, nor did he receive expensive vocal training. Instead, he spent countless hours listening to classic rock songs on the radio, singing along whenever he could. Music became his escape, his comfort, and eventually his greatest passion. As the years passed, responsibilities took priority over dreams. Richard accepted a job as a school custodian, a position that provided stability and allowed him to remain close to the community he loved. Every morning he cleaned classrooms, swept hallways, and made sure students arrived at a safe and welcoming school. Most people knew him simply as the friendly janitor with a cheerful smile. But those who worked alongside him knew another side of Richard. As he moved through the hallways during the day, he often sang while he worked. Students would stop and listen, amazed that someone with such an incredible voice was pushing a mop instead of standing on a concert stage. Teachers encouraged him to keep singing, and many believed his talent deserved a much bigger audience. For years, however, Richard doubted himself. Like countless talented people, he wondered whether his dream had simply arrived too late. He wasn't a young, aspiring artist anymore. He had built a comfortable life, and stepping outside that routine felt risky. Even so, music never stopped calling him. Everything changed when a simple performance unexpectedly reached the internet. During a school event, Richard performed Journey's legendary anthem, "Don't Stop Believin'." There were no elaborate stage lights, no television cameras, and no professional production team. It was simply a heartfelt performance shared with students and staff. Someone recorded the moment. Within days, the video spread rapidly across social media. Millions of viewers were stunned that such an extraordinary voice belonged to an ordinary school janitor. Comments poured in from around the country, praising not only his incredible singing but also his genuine personality. The viral success introduced Richard to audiences far beyond Indiana. For the first time, people began encouraging him to pursue music seriously. Friends, co-workers, and complete strangers all shared the same message. You belong on a bigger stage. That encouragement slowly changed the way Richard saw himself. Instead of viewing singing as a hobby, he started wondering whether he should finally chase the dream he had carried since childhood. Still, taking that leap wasn't easy. Long before his successful AGT audition, Richard experienced painful disappointment. He submitted auditions to major talent competitions, hoping someone in the entertainment industry would recognize his gift. One of those opportunities was The Voice. He carefully recorded his audition, gave it everything he had, and waited for a response. Eventually, the answer arrived. It wasn't the message he had hoped to receive. The audition had been rejected. For many people, that single email would have ended the dream forever. Rejection hurts, especially when it comes after years of believing in yourself. Richard admitted that receiving the news was heartbreaking. But instead of quitting, he chose to continue. He reminded himself that one person's opinion could never define his future. Every setback became another lesson instead of a reason to give up. That mindset would soon change everything. As his confidence slowly grew, Richard decided to audition once again, this time for America's Got Talent. Unlike many contestants who arrived with years of professional experience, Richard stepped onto the AGT stage carrying nothing more than decades of determination and an unforgettable voice. Even getting there felt like an adventure. He had rarely traveled, and many of the experiences surrounding the competition were completely new to him. Flying on an airplane, meeting television producers, performing under massive stage lights. Everything pushed him far outside his comfort zone. Still, he reminded himself why he had come. Not for fame, not for money, but for the chance to finally share his music with the world. When Richard walked onto the AGT stage, few people in the audience knew what to expect. Standing before the judges, he appeared calm, polite, and humble. He introduced himself simply as a school janitor from Indiana. It sounded like the beginning of an ordinary audition. Then the music started. Choosing Journey's iconic Don't Stop Believin' was a bold decision. It's one of the most recognizable rock songs ever recorded, and audiences know every note. Performing such a classic leaves little room for mistakes. But within seconds of singing the opening lyrics, Richard completely changed the atmosphere inside the theater. The audience fell silent. His voice carried remarkable strength while remaining filled with warmth and sincerity. Instead of trying to imitate the original version, he made the song feel deeply personal. Every lyric reflected years of perseverance, hope, and quiet determination. The judges immediately realized they were witnessing something special. Expressions of surprise quickly turned into admiration. As the performance continued, the audience became completely invested, erupting into applause after every powerful note. By the time Richard reached the final chorus, many people were already standing. When the song ended, the theater exploded with cheers. The judges praised not only his incredible vocals but also the authenticity that made his performance unforgettable. Richard wasn't pretending to be anyone else. He was simply sharing the passion that had carried him through decades of ordinary life. Then came the moment that changed everything forever. The golden buzzer. Confetti rained from the ceiling as Richard stood frozen in disbelief. For a few emotional seconds, he struggled to process what had just happened. Years of rejection, self-doubt, and quiet perseverance had suddenly led to one unforgettable moment on one of the world's biggest stages. The audience celebrated. The judges smiled. Backstage, Richard admitted he could hardly believe it was real. After spending years cleaning classrooms and quietly singing through school hallways, he had become one of the breakout stars of America's Got Talent. But while millions celebrated his incredible success, an entirely new challenge was only beginning. Because after the cameras stopped rolling and the excitement faded, Richard Goodall would discover that achieving a lifelong dream is only the first chapter of an even more remarkable story. After receiving the golden buzzer, Richard Goodall's life changed almost overnight. News outlets wanted interviews, television producers requested appearances, and millions of people suddenly knew the name of the school janitor from Indiana. To many viewers, it looked like the beginning of a glamorous new life. But Richard had something very different in mind. While many reality television stars immediately relocate to entertainment capitals and fully embrace celebrity life, Richard surprised everyone by returning to the place where his journey began. Instead of leaving behind the school that had supported him for years, he went back to the same hallways where he had spent decades cleaning classrooms and encouraging students with his music. That decision puzzled many fans. Why would someone with such incredible talent choose to return to an ordinary job after becoming nationally famous? For Richard, the answer was simple. His career as a school custodian wasn't something he wanted to escape from. It represented stability, friendship, and a community that had believed in him long before television audiences discovered his voice. The students, teachers, and co-workers who had encouraged him through difficult years remained just as important after AGT as they had before. Fame had changed his schedule. It had not changed his values. Of course, balancing two completely different worlds wasn't easy. Music performances, interviews, television appearances, and rehearsals began filling his calendar. Every opportunity required time away from work, forcing Richard to carefully divide his attention between his responsibilities at school and the exciting possibilities opening within the music industry. Even so, he resisted rushing into a full-time entertainment career. He openly admitted that his school job gave him security. It reminded him where he came from and helped him stay grounded while everything around him was changing. That humility became one of the reasons so many people continued supporting him. As invitations continued arriving, Richard found himself performing on stages he had never imagined. One unforgettable opportunity came when he was invited to sing the national anthem before an Indiana Pacers basketball game. Standing inside a packed arena, he experienced another milestone that would have seemed impossible only a few years earlier. He also appeared as an opening act for comedian and AGT judge Howie Mandel, another surreal moment that reminded him how dramatically his life had changed. Yet every interview revealed the same humble attitude. Richard rarely spoke about fame. Instead, he talked about gratitude. He thanked the people who had encouraged him before anyone knew his name. He repeatedly credited his hometown, his co-workers, and his supporters for believing in him during the years when success seemed impossible. Behind the public celebrations, however, Richard had already endured one of the greatest tragedies of his life. Years before America watched him perform on national television, he experienced heartbreaking personal loss. His first wife, whom he had shared decades of life with, passed away after battling cancer. Losing someone after so many years together left an emotional wound that could never truly disappear. Those close to Richard understood that the cheerful smile audiences saw on television came after years of grief and healing. Rather than speaking publicly about every painful detail, Richard chose to remember her privately. He shared emotional messages reflecting on their life together and acknowledged how deeply the loss had affected him. Like many people facing unimaginable heartbreak, he leaned on music for comfort. Singing became more than entertainment. It became therapy, offering hope during the darkest moments of his life. Eventually, Richard found happiness again. His relationship with Angie Vanoven became another important chapter in his journey. Throughout his AGT experience, Angie stood beside him, offering encouragement when the pressure became overwhelming. Just before the AGT finals, the couple married. The timing couldn't have been more emotional. While millions watched Richard compete on one of television's biggest stages, he was also beginning a completely new chapter in his personal life. He frequently described Angie as someone who helped keep him grounded and reminded him that success means very little without people to share it with. For Richard, family always came before fame. As his popularity continued growing, another unexpected challenge appeared. Returning to school after becoming famous wasn't exactly what he expected. Some students teased him about his sudden celebrity status. Instead of becoming upset or offended, Richard laughed it off with remarkable maturity. He understood that children would naturally joke about seeing their school janitor on national television. Rather than allowing criticism to affect him, he treated the situation with kindness and humor. That reaction perfectly reflected the personality fans had come to admire. He never acted like a celebrity. He remained the same friendly custodian who enjoyed making students smile. Outside school, Richard continued performing with his local band, giving concerts throughout Indiana and surrounding communities. What had once been occasional local performances suddenly attracted much larger audiences. His viral videos had opened doors he never expected. Musicians who admired his voice invited him to collaborate, including former American Idol contestant Rudy Cardenas. Together, they performed Journey classics that thrilled audiences and introduced Richard to even more fans. Support also arrived from unexpected places. Journey's legendary lead singer Steve Perry publicly praised Richard's performances online, a moment that left the lifelong fan almost speechless. Receiving recognition from one of his greatest musical heroes became another unforgettable milestone. Even the official Journey social media accounts acknowledged his incredible performances. For someone who had spent years singing those songs alone, the recognition felt almost unbelievable. As Richard advanced through America's Got Talent, members of his community rallied behind him in extraordinary ways. Friends organized fundraising efforts to help cover travel expenses and other competition-related costs. Hundreds of supporters donated, proving that his hometown wanted to see him succeed just as much as viewers across America. Richard never forgot that generosity. He repeatedly thanked everyone who had contributed, explaining that their kindness allowed him to focus on performing rather than worrying about financial challenges. Despite everything he achieved, Richard continued speaking about the future with surprising humility. He didn't claim to have every answer. He wasn't obsessed with becoming a worldwide superstar. Instead, he hoped to continue making music, possibly record an album one day, and keep sharing songs that inspired people. That simple outlook made him different from many reality television personalities. Success never changed the reason he sang. He wasn't chasing headlines. He wasn't trying to become famous. He simply wanted to connect with people through music. Perhaps that's why Richard Goodall's story continues to resonate with audiences around the world. His journey reminds us that dreams don't have expiration dates. Extraordinary opportunities can arrive long after most people believe they're impossible. One viral video, one courageous decision, and one unforgettable performance completely transformed the life of a man who had quietly spent decades cleaning school hallways. Yet through every standing ovation, every television appearance, and every headline, Richard protected the qualities that made people fall in love with him from the beginning. Humility, kindness, perseverance, and an unwavering belief that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things. So what really happened to Richard Goodall after AGT? He didn't disappear. He didn't let fame consume him. Instead, he chose something far more remarkable. He continued living with gratitude, honoring the community that supported him, cherishing his family, pursuing music on his own terms, and proving that success means far more than celebrity status. Richard Goodall's story isn't simply about winning a television competition. It's about refusing to give up after rejection. It's about finding hope after heartbreaking loss. It's about staying true to yourself when the world suddenly knows your name. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson his journey offers all of us. Sometimes the most inspiring success stories aren't the ones about becoming famous. They're the ones about never forgetting where you came from,